Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. It is the anniversary of the 10-cent beer night riots back in the 1970s. A little later in the show, we will take a look at that. We'll also hear from the Indians president at the time, Ted Bonda, as well as an Indians beat reporter, Russell Schneider, in that piece later in the show. We'll be joined by Tommy Carosielli as well from the Gap to Gap podcast. We'll talk some Browns, a little bit of baseball, and some basketball with Tommy. But we begin with the Browns. And the Browns made some news. They signed their second-round pick, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, to a contract that's a 4-year deal. Not a surprise. It was going to get done, but they get it done. Always good to have the draft picks signed and ready to go. And there is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah after signing his contract that puts him on the Browns for the next 4 years. Let's welcome in Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Jeff, as always, appreciate the time. No longer a big surprise that these guys get signed, but good to get it done and over with before training camp and the mandatory mini camps and all those things.
Oh, absolutely. One of the big perks of the new CBA, and you can go different ways on that, but the fact that the rookies don't have to negotiate their contracts, everything is effectively pre-slotted for them. It makes life so much easier at this time of year. I remember covering holdouts, and I remember covering acrimonious negotiations. We don't have to worry about that anymore, so it's great to get him in. And the smile on his face in that picture was just fantastic. That's a sincere smile. There's a guy who's happy to be in Cleveland. That's very nice to see.
And a guy that probably can help. Well, you know, the OTAs are in person for some players, not in person for others. One of the guys that has not been at the Browns OTAs in person, Nick Chubb. But Nick wants to make sure Browns fans are resting easily as we take a look. He is working out and actually looks like he's working out pretty hard and pretty good. 375 there. That's the amount of weight he is squatting there. And Nick Chubb getting after it. Always a good sign. And he looks like he's ready to go. Jeff, it won't be long before he's required to be here. Right now it's voluntary. So good signs from Nick Chubb there. He's getting after it.
Yeah, definitely. My back hurts just thinking about lifting that much weight. That's pretty impressive. You know, OTAs for running backs, you're not allowed to have contact. You're not allowed to have, pads on. So what Nick Chubb does best doesn't necessarily show up in the OTA. So I don't blame him for working out on his own. He'll be fine. I don't think we have any questions about his conditioning or his effort level or his dedication to the team. None of that is a problem. He'll be in here when he needs to be in here. About the only thing that running backs can do right now is catch the ball. That's something that he probably could work on a little bit, but I have a feeling that the Browns are okay with him being fine. But he looks fantastic. He again is remarkable that he is as productive as he is, as consistently as he is, and the dedication in the weight room there is one of the reasons why. The whole concept of the OTAs and the guys getting back in shape. These guys never really get out of shape anymore. That's sort of a bygone era, sort of like the old contract negotiations this time of year. But it's still good to see him working out and getting after it and doing things that most of us can't do.
Yeah, well, now, guys make enough money that they don't have to get side jobs and get out of shape working second jobs like they had to in the bygone era. Pro Football Focus ranked the running back units, so the running back collective for a team. Browns number 1, Colts number 2, Saints number 3, Vikings number 4, Cowboys number 5. But the Browns, not really that big of a surprise that they are the best in the NFL.
Yeah, the 1-2 punch of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nobody else can match that, especially when they're both healthy. And the fact that they complement each other so well. Kareem can do the outside running. He can go inside, but he's so good in their passing game. Chubb, the home run hitter, all the 20-plus yard runs, all the big plays. A guy who's capable of taking a 1st and 10 carry and getting you 30. No other team has both of those elements. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Browns offense can be special and was very effective last year, and why the arrow's still pointing up, because quite frankly, these guys didn't get a great deal of time together in the last year. And now the fact that they have experience in the offense, they understand what they want to do. Those two together seem to have a really good relationship in terms of, okay, I'm not worried about touches today. If we're riding the hot hand today and Kareem happens to be the hot one that day, Nick's not going to get upset about that. It's all about the team and just the collection of talent that they have in that backfield. And actually got deeper with the draft with a guy like Demetric Felton, who offers you quite a bit more as a receiver. This was a guy who was a wide receiver in college. And don't forget about Dearness Johnson. I know that Pro Football Focus only generally focus on the top two, but there is a little bit of depth here. We saw what Dearness Johnson could do against Dallas last year. So this is a really, really good running back room. It makes sense that they're number one. And quite frankly, I don't think it's even that close with the other teams that you mentioned there.
Yeah, I agree. The depth has been improved dramatically with Felton back there and Johnson returning as well. So another guy that wasn't at OTAs, John Johnson, one of the free agent signings, perhaps the most important free agent signing. And again, it depends on who you're talking to. But John Johnson also showing he's putting in the work as well. He's not present in Berea, but still getting after it and working on that hand-eye coordination, working the jugs gun and kind of creeping in and positioning himself. So again, Browns not in Berea, still working out. And John Johnson is going to be a huge piece of what the Browns do defensively this season.
Oh, absolutely. And to see him making the one-hand snag there at the end of that video, that's pretty darn impressive. If you can get a couple of those during the season, Browns fans are going to know really fast who John Johnson is. This guy he's a great player. And I don't think that the Rams fully appreciate how much they're going to miss him on the flip side either. He was the best safety. He was the bedrock. He was the guy that allowed their good corners on the outside. And one of those is also in Cleveland and Troy Hill to freelance a little bit and to make more aggressive plays because they knew he was always going to be there. One of the things that I love about a safety is when they embrace the literal meaning of their job description as a safety. You are playing over the top of everybody else to make sure that if somebody else on the defense fails, you save the day. And he does that at a very high level and very consistent level. And from what we had last year with the rotating safety combinations, the 2, the 3, and what we even had before that where, we had Peppers lining up in Vermillion to play against the run. All those things are gone now. And John Johnson is a very talented guy. This is a guy that has Pro Bowl potential. I think we're going to see it very quickly in Cleveland. And again, would it be better if he was here? Maybe, probably a little bit. But I have very little concern about him picking up the playbook, understanding what he needs to do, and making an impact right away in Cleveland.
So the Bleacher Report ranked the smartest offseason move for each of the NFL teams. For the Browns, signing John Johnson. It was, when you look at it, it was a huge weakness. That secondary was a problem, especially the safety position.
It really was. They tried a lot of different things. They brought in Ronnie Harrison. He was good. He's still here and still belongs on the field. But he was the best safety last year. We tried. Grant Delpit coming back is obviously a big blow or a big boon. It was a huge blow last year when he was out. It forced Andrew Sendejo to play more and more importantly than he needed to. I give him credit. He did the best that he could, but it just wasn't good enough for a playoff caliber defense. And I think we saw that. Sheldrick Redwine didn't emerge as the player that we've wanted him to be for a couple of years now. Getting a guy like John Johnson in and getting Delpit back, the safety room, basically Ronnie Harrison is going from being the number 1 to the number 3. He seems to be fine with that. Based on all accounts I've heard, he's very happy being the third safety and letting the other 2 guys be above him and make plays and reinforce what was a definite weakness. They had to get better on the back end. To their credit, they identified it. They went out and they got the best safety that they could get in John Johnson. They paid him handsomely for it. It's very similar to what they did with Jack Conklin a year ago. They knew they needed to get better at offensive tackle. They took Jack Conklin, signed him to a huge free agent deal, drafted Jedrick Wills. That worked out pretty darn well. They also have one of the best tackle tandems in the NFL in those two. This year, the attention went on the defensive side of the ball, and getting Johnson in there, my goodness, it should be a home run signing. It really should.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com and I going to step aside and take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from Pat McAfee and what he thinks this Browns defense might be. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. The OHSAA State Championship Softball Tournament in Akron at Firestone Stadium. Semis today and tomorrow. The finals on Sunday is a look in at the Division IV state semifinal game. We continue talking Browns football as Jeff Risdon and I from BrownsWire.com talking Browns football. So Myles Garrett coming back and healthy, and Pat McAfee, one of our favorites, thinks this could be a huge upgrade for the Browns defense.
He said he felt 50% after COVID. This could be the same thing for Cam Newton, by the way. The long-term effects, he said he didn't feel like himself. This past offseason, I think we've all seen it. He is in great shape. I don't know if this is a revenge body on COVID that Myles Garrett has been going after. His basketball season is over. His career is over. Kevin Stefanski continues to be a hilarious human being. Says he's retired. He had a hell of a run in basketball. Myles Garrett was at 50% last year. Now he's got Clowney alongside of him. That entire team gets Odell back. The Browns might be a real problem. And Myles Garrett at 50%, obviously specimen. This year, he's going to be even better. This Browns team, the dog pound, hey, you go from outhouse to penthouse pretty quick maybe here with Andrew Berry at the helm. Cleveland's got to feel very good about the team they have.
Pat McAfee, let's bring back in Jeff Risdon. Jeff, you can tell by the accent that's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, born and raised, and he is admitting Browns could be a problem.
Yeah, they should be a problem. And to go to what he's talking about with Myles, we saw what happened after he came back from COVID. He was not the same guy. He just couldn't get the wind. People have written great stories about it. It's worth checking out. He wasn't the same guy. Remember, this was a guy that halfway through the season was a big-time front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. I promoted that heavily. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. He did fall off after that. Still made plays, but it was pretty clear that he wasn't the same guy. From everything we've seen this summer, from the workout videos to the playing pickup basketball and dunking on dudes like me that are in the pickup line, it's darn impressive. He does look like he has a revenge body. We saw the suit at the draft. My goodness, it was like the Incredible Hulk, ripping the fabric at the seams. He is a remarkable physical specimen. I'm very happy that he is back to full strength and full wind. And he's going to take it out on some other people this year. There is pent-up aggression there. This is a guy that knows that he had individual acclaim coming to him last year, and it didn't happen because unfortunately he got struck with COVID. I do think there's a revenge tour at mind here to McAfee's point, and it's nice that he's on our side and not on the other team because he's ready, and he looks poised to have a monster season.
Yeah, and they put nice pieces around him to make sure that he should get some less attention, if you will. Well, every team, CBS Sports is who did this, every team's non-quarterback that the team cannot afford to lose. And for the Browns, CBS says it's Myles Garrett.
And it's hard to disagree with that because we did see the fall off last year when they didn't have him. You wanted to wonder what would happen if they didn't have Odell. I think they handled that okay. I do question that if they lose Baker Mayfield, obviously that's a big one, but they threw that out. We saw what they did without Chubb. They accommodated. They got through. We've seen what they can do without Denzel Ward. And it's not necessarily pretty, but I think one of the things that happens with that is that Myles can help cover that with a better pass rush. So I tend to agree with them on that. The only one I would say, their backup tackle depth on offense scares me a little bit. It's unproven. And I wonder if they lost Jack Conklin or Jedrick Wills, if that would be more devastating to the way that they play. But it's hard to go wrong praising Myles Garrett, so I certainly won't get in the way of that.
The other thing is it'll be interesting to see because we kind of touched on it. They added pieces around him, so maybe that will help the defense as a whole. There were some issues in the back half. Well, we heard Pat McAfee refer to it. Myles Garrett playing pickup basketball. We've all seen it. But you know what? You can never see this too many times. So let's take a look.
No, you really can't.
Myles Garrett going in and showing just how athletic he is with the dunk. And take a listen to Kevin Stefanski.
He retired. So congratulations on a great career for Myles. Really proud of him. But he's done.
I feel like it's more of like a Jordan retirement. I went to baseball for a second, / I went to basketball for a second. And now I got to go back to what I'm good at, what I usually do, playing football, rush passer, stopping the run. The next season, you never know. I might go back to basketball. I might go play baseball, see if I can get on a team. But there's more on the horizon right now. I got to get back to what my main focus is.
So, Jeff, what do you make of it? It's probably a really good decision by Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, you don't want somebody getting offended by getting dunked on in a pickup game. I mean, obviously it's Myles Garrett, and I think people would have the proper level of discretion there. But something can happen. What if he lands on that guy and rolls an ankle or something like that? You can't take those risks. As remarkable of a physical specimen as he is, he probably needs to just show it off by doing the 50-inch box jumps with the 50-pound dumbbells in each hand. That's probably good enough. You don't need to show up, guys, at the local rec center. I love the fact that it was good-natured from Stefanski and from Garrett, that they both took it in stride. It's clear that there's a respect there, that Garrett respects the authority of Stefanski, but Stefanski's also not like coming down like a hard hammer here. There's a playfulness to it, and I like to see that. You've got one of your best players on the team, probably the most talented player on the team, and he and the coach can go at it like that, friendly, but still getting the message across. I think that's a really good sign for their relationship and for where the Browns are at in terms of just as a team. There's a great feel to this roster and this group of young men that are surrounding Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff. They really like each other, and it seems like they did a good job of mixing personalities in and fitting who will blend well. Aside from just having talent, you do have to have that chemistry. There's clear chemistry there with Garrett and his coach, and it shows. Yeah,
and you get it from Myles' standpoint. He's kind of keeping himself in shape, and it's not like he's skydiving or riding a motorcycle or doing something crazy. But I can also see Kevin Stefanski's point going, let's just make sure we keep it on the football field and not get too crazy.
Yeah, you got to remember where his salary is paid, and I think Myles acknowledged that pretty well there. And the fact, could you imagine him being your cleanup hitter? To go innings for a second, I do remember Albert Bell being a physical behemoth on the baseball field, and he's nothing like Myles Garrett. That would scare me if I were a pitcher or a opposing manager.
Well, they probably will let him play in Jarvis Landry's softball tournament coming up here, the softball tournament for charity coming up in a couple of weeks out at Captain Stadium. So we're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Jeff Risdon and I from BrownsWire.com, we'll talk about franchise records that could go down Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
COVID-19 has changed how we show up and show out with our family. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to talking smack with a side of mac and cheese. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions. Should I get it? Is it safe?
Should I wait?
It's smart to question. Now, get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
Sports for CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. So according to BrownsNation.com, these are franchise records, 3 of them that could go down this year. First one, Garrett single season and career sack records. So the single season record by a guy named Reggie Camp, remember him well, back in 1984, had 14. The career sack record belongs to Clay Matthews, the dad of the Clay Matthews who played for the Packers. He had 62. Garrett has 42 and a half, so he needs 19 and a half to get the career, 14, 15 to get the single season. You think either or both of those could potentially go down?
Boy, I hope so. It's certainly possible. And I do sort of remember Reggie Camp. I am old enough of that age to remember it. I remember when I actually took over Brownswire a few years ago, one of the things that we did was tracking the franchise records, and I was shocked that it wasn't Chip Banks or Clay Matthews or Michael Dean Perry that had the sack record, that it was in fact Reggie Camp. And I don't think he's going to have it much longer. I think Mr. Camp has held on to it for almost 40 years. I think it's going to go down. Garrett would have had it last year had he stayed healthy. I think that he's not going to have any problem. Keep in mind, there's an extra game, too. There's 17 games now. I think averaging a sack a game is certainly not out of the question. And quite frankly, it should be the expectation for Myles Garrett this year. Like you said earlier, Clowney's across from him. Tack McKinley's an accomplished pass rusher. He's across from him. They got a little bit better at the linebacking core to cover a little bit better, which maybe creates that extra half second for another step to get closer to the quarterback. I think the single season is definitely going down. And the career, it wouldn't surprise me if he got there. It's going to take a little bit of effort and maybe, remember last year when he had the sack that he shared with Sheldon Richardson and they fought over the credit for it. There might be a couple of situations like that where Myles is going to have to come out on top to get the career record this year. But getting 14, I think that's pretty much in the bag.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is if the Browns get ahead and teams have to throw, Myles is going to pin his ears back. And that, with this offense, that could be a situation that you're looking at. So I would agree with you. So the next one.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, really. Baker Mayfield single season touchdown and passing yards record. So they're held by Brian Sipe, 4,132 yards passing and 30 touchdowns in 1980. And I think both of those are very well within Baker Mayfield's sights here.
They are. The only thing that I could think would be holding it back is the fact that they do have the best running back combination in the league, and they could run the ball a lot. And specifically, if they get leads early, they could run the ball a lot more than they even did last year. You're talking about a team that could have a true 50-50 balance. That would reduce some opportunities, not necessarily I think the yards will get there with Baker just because I think he has so many weapons, and one of those weapons being Kareem coming out of the backfield, catching the ball a lot. the just over 4,000 yards, that could fall. The 30 touchdowns, I don't know, that's one that I think Sipe might hold on to. And that's nothing against Baker. I think it's just more of a sense of opportunity for this team that they might not have to just throw that many times to get that many touchdown passes. We'll see, though.
And with the way the line is, you get inside that 5, even inside the 10, you're going to run the football and let that line kind of maul people. All right, the third one, franchise record for wins. Now, it is currently the 1986 Browns, 12-4. And the old-timers are going to say, back in 48, the AAFC Browns went 14-0, not recognized by the NFL, is recognized by the Hall of Fame. What do you think? Can they get 13 wins? That's a challenge.
It is. They have the ability to do it, though. On paper, this is, if they're not the best team in not just the AFC, but in the entire NFL, they're within shouting distance of it. Now, there's going to be weird things that happen. You get weird weather like we had last year when the Raiders came to town. There's variables that come up. You can't predict injuries, but if this team is healthy and plays to its potential, this is a division-winning team that wins 13 or 14 games. Remember, they do play 17, so 13-4 is certainly possible with this team. 14-3 is certainly possible. Any more than that, and you're talking about just a strange confluence of luck and good fortune, and that could happen too, and it would be fantastic if it did. But I think the safe bet is going 13-4, maybe 12-5. But yeah, they got a real good shot at that, especially the way that their schedule shakes out. I thought they got a really nice breakdown for the schedule in terms of who they play and when they play them. I like it, Dave. I'm ready. I'm ready to rewrite that record book with the 13 or 14 wins. Let's do it.
Yeah, and you know what? It'll be a heck of a fall into the winter if the Browns, in fact, do that. So what did Kevin Stefanski learn from last season?
I think one of the things that he learned was how to share the credit with his and delegate to his authority and his assistant coaches. He talked about a week ago about how much he learned in terms of sharing the responsibilities for the coaching on the day-to-day basis with his assistants, letting them do their work and letting them report to him instead of trying to have his finger in every single pot. He learned that maybe he only needs to oversee it and to trust them and respect them. And I'll say this, I think Callie Brownson helped him a great deal as the chief of staff. We all wondered a little bit what that was going to be like, but her ability to organize everything and present it to him and to keep him not necessarily worried about the little things that could get in the way. I think it's a very, very educated staff. And I think Stefanski, to his own credit, he's always trying to get better. He's always self-scouting, and he realizes that he could probably do a little bit more on that even. Maybe I do trust Joe Woods a little bit more with running some exotic schemes on defense or things like that. He doesn't have to have full control of everything. We have seen those coaches in Cleveland. We know that doesn't go too well. So I think the fact that the Stefanski, A, he's the reigning coach of the year, and B, that he acknowledges that he still wants to get better and has a room to get better and understands where he can get better. That should blow your mind if you're a Cleveland fan, quite honestly.
Yeah, you know what? Everything you said, I'm just going, boy, that's a perfect head coaching, mindset, and that's kind of what you were getting at. All right, we have 3 bold predictions for Kevin Stefanski and the Browns. This courtesy BrownsNation.com. 1, he relinquishes play calling duties to Alex Van Pelt. 2, he leads the Browns to victory in the AFC Championship game. 3, he repeats as Coach of the Year. Which of those do you think likely to happen? And you can pick more than one.
Yeah, the Van Pelt one is interesting because that was one of the questions we had at this point last year was who was going to call the plays. And that can go back and forth. He could take over for a set amount of time. If it works better if Van Pelt is just working more closely with Baker Mayfield and the receivers, that one's certainly plausible. Winning the AFC Championship game, God, that would be fantastic. Repeating as Coach of the Year is ridiculously difficult. It hasn't happened since Joe Gibbs back in 1981 and 1982, I believe, with the Washington football team. And there have been guys who were better the year after that they won the award than they were the year that they won it, and they still didn't get it. So that one, that's tough. One of the reasons why he won it last year was I think that the expectations were really low. I think the fact that he accomplished what he did in the context that he did gave him a lot of credit with the voters. And as a disclosure, I am a voter, and I did vote for Kevin Stefanski. But I think those of us who do vote, we like the sort of the up and coming angle. And there's going to be a team that comes from out of nowhere and makes the playoffs this year. And that coach is probably going to get rewarded for it. So not that he won't be deserving of it, but it's going to be really hard for Kevin Stefanski to win that Coach of the Year award again.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with your rationale. To be a first-year head coach with COVID and no preseason games, no training games, I mean,
he coached the game from his basement.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? He deserved it. So
he did.
We're going to take one more time out. Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com and I will talk a little bit about what to expect from Baker Mayfield in year 2. We will also talk about the USFL. And a spoiler alert, Jeff wrote a thesis in college about this. So they're coming back. We have a great guest to talk about it. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with BrownsWire.com's Jeff Risdon. Jeff, year 2 for Baker Mayfield with Kevin Stefanski in the same system. How big of a step forward do you expect Baker Mayfield to take?
Oh, I think the comfort level, the fact that he's not learning a new offense, the fact that he understands, what his coach demands from him, what his coach expects from him in certain situations now. That's going to take so much stress, so much pressure off of Baker to try to have to learn things. Now he can focus on fine-tuning things, developing the chemistry with his receivers a little bit better. Going to the coach and saying, hey, can I maybe we change this a little bit because I think that'll work better with me, because they have that sort of working relationship now. They have that trust with one another. So I think it's going to be very noticeable. One of the ways that I think it's going to manifest itself, I think you're going to see fewer turnovers. I think you're going to see a more aggressive Baker Mayfield, but also with that, the fact that he is going to be more careful in some situations as well. And I think that's the sort of balance that you're absolutely looking for if you're Kevin Stefanski, because they do have the weapons now. A guy like Anthony Schwartz stretches the field in a way that they haven't had before. They got him some more weapons that he's going to be comfortable with working with. And the fact that it's honing skills instead of learning skills. Anybody who's done anything professionally for a set amount of time, you understand the difference between the two there. And that's going to be huge for Baker. He's changed systems so many times over his career. And I think the stability and the belief in him, the fact that he doesn't have to go out and prove himself to a new coach again, although Baker does do really well with the chip on his shoulder, I think he's going to enjoy this year too.
Yeah, the other thing is it allows him to worry about the fundamentals, because it's not like he has to go through and think, okay, what's my progression? That becomes second nature. So he can worry about fine-tuning the delivery of the football. I think that's going to make a huge difference for him.
Oh, absolutely. He's not worrying about he's not changing which foot is forward when he catches the snap in the shotgun. He's not worried about, okay, does he want me to, when I'm doing a 3-step drop, does he want me to throw it at 3 or before I get to 3 as the foot lands? Little things like that. I didn't have to worry about that anymore. He knows what's going on.
So let's change our attention to the USFL. They announced they're coming back in a little bit. Spoiler, I did tease that you wrote a thesis. Take me through what your thoughts are when you saw that the USFL is returning in 2022.
All right, so I am of the certain age where the USFL was a very big deal for me when it first came around back in the 1980s with all the stars in it. I was enamored with it enough that I did my senior history thesis in college at Ohio University on the USFL and why it failed. And I got an A on it. I'm proud of that. Just doing all the research with it and everything. I got to know some of the players from it. They did a beautiful 30 for 30 on ESPN on it that reinforced a lot of the things that I saw. Also, Jeff Pearlman wrote a great book called Football for a Buck. I would highly recommend anybody who's interested in the USFL read that. He did actually lean on me for a little bit of research on that, which I'm grateful for. But I love the alternative football leagues. I was a big UFL fan. I love the AAF. I wanted the XFL to work. The USFL, again, do I know if it's going to work? No, but I'm so excited to have it back. It's part of my childhood. I went to the Hall of Fame last summer. And they have a small section dedicated to the USFL, and I spent an inordinate amount of time there. So I'm just through the roof that this is coming back. I hope it works. I don't think there's going to be a team in Cleveland. There could be a team in Columbus, maybe. For those of us who grew up when I did, where I did, I was a Michigan Panthers fan. I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. That were the closest team, and I could get WTOL out of Toledo to watch the games. So it's just great day. I'm really excited to have it back, and I hope that it works, and I hope that they learned their lessons from the last time. When there were a lot of problems from a lot of places that led to its demise.
Now they have a minority stakeholder that will televise it, so they have the broadcast outlet. The key is it's got to be kind of in the spring, and it's got to be a supplement, not a competitor to the. Right when they did that, that was like, you're not going to win that battle.
That was the final nail in the coffin. The biggest thing that they had last time was they didn't have a strong central leadership. There were some owners that wanted to do one thing. There were some owners that wanted to do another thing. There were some owners who were deadbeats, and they didn't have any central power structure or commissioner worth his salt that could make them go all in the same direction. And they just had so many different angles and tangents going off that it eventually collapsed. And some of it was financial. Some of it was just bad fortune too. That they kind of picked a few bad cities and a few bad owners. Hopefully they've learned the lessons from that. I will offer my thesis to them, except it's on the 5 1/4-inch floppy drives and they melted, so I can't actually reproduce it as much as I would love to give that to them.
Jeff Risdon, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much. Remember, you can read Jeff, brownswire.com, lionswire.com too, does a number of NFL articles. Jeff, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, Jeff Risdon from brownswire.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about Browns football. Tommy Carosielli from the Gap to Gap podcast will join us. We'll talk some Browns football, some rankings out by Pro Football Network, where the Browns sit. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
As the COVID-19 vaccines become available, you might be asking yourself, should I get it? And if I do, will I be able to go about life without putting my family at risk? You've got questions, and that's normal. The fact is, the vaccines are safe and effective. They're going to save lives. To get the latest on the COVID-19 vaccines, visit getvaccineanswers.org, because getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed. It's up to you.
Sports for CLE continues. We look in live, Firestone Stadium, Akron, Ohio, site of the OHSAA Softball Championships. Today, the first of 2 days of semifinals. Then on Sunday, all 4 divisions will compete in the state softball championships. Again, a good look at the state semifinals. That one, a Division IV matchup down in Akron at Firestone Stadium. State championships for high school going on this week for softball. Let's welcome in Tommy Carosielli from Gap to Gap podcast. Tommy, as always, appreciate the time. So Pro Football Network came out with their power rankings. They also divided them in tiers. So there's only 2 in the first tier, Super Bowl favorites, Buccaneers and Chiefs, kind of a no-brainer. Tier 2, conference champion contenders. Number 3 is the Bills. Number 4, the Packers. Number 5 are Cleveland Browns, and number 6, Ravens, Rams, and Seahawks also in that category. What do you make of it? Do you think the Browns are legitimate championship game contenders here with the upgrades they've made?
Well, first of all, Dave, thanks for having me on. Second of all, I absolutely think the Browns are a conference championship contender. Now, a Super Bowl contender, that's a great question. We can get into that at a later time, but I think right now, number one, it's the best time in history to be a Browns fan, I would feel. And I think in terms of the rest of the NFL, they have finally entered that top tier of being legitimate contenders where we can go in and to say 13 wins, we're not just blowing smoke as Browns fans. And man, it's such a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, the other thing is it's legitimately one of the better rosters in the NFL. You could argue top to bottom, it's as good as any. And I think, you know, Baker gets dinged a little bit just because he hasn't done it at the level that a Brady or, you know, a Mahomes has yet. And I say yet.
Yeah, yet's the awesome word in there because he's entering year 4. You know, everybody kind of expects him to make that jump. And I think it's not really that far of an expectation to see him as a top 8 quarterback by the end of the year. I think he's already in that 9 to 15 range, depending on who you ask. I know some of the bigger media pundits would have him towards the bottom half of that 13 to 15. But I think this is a year with the weapons he has. If he stays healthy, if the line stays healthy, we can see him jump into that 5 to 8 conversation. I know that's where I have him at the end of the year this year.
I would agree. The thing that I would say, the national folks aren't paying enough attention to some of the challenges that have been thrown in front of him. Anybody who's watched the Browns under Hugh Jackson or Freddie Kitchens, that was not the same type of philosophy and cohesiveness of an offensive philosophy that he now has with Kevin Stefanski.
Without a doubt. And to say they're hitting their stride with Stefanski as a play caller, with the synergy with Baker and the weapons, I think it's just, I'm going to keep going back to it. It's a great time to root for the Cleveland Browns and to see the culmination of all this development of all the work that the weapons have put in, that like guys like Jarvis, the leadership of a Jarvis Landry. It's so much fun to see the culmination of it all and to go into a season with realistically very high hopes.
Yeah, and you know, for Browns fans, I'm happy it's about time. It's been about 20 years that folks have been waiting. So Bleacher Report came out with a rookie to keep an eye on for each and every team. For the Browns, they say Anthony Schwartz.
I agree with that. You know, I was actually going to, while you were saying the question, I was thinking Schwartz is probably the guy under the radar that can really shine on this team. Obviously, Newsome's going to be a big piece of that defense. Koromoa is going to have a big role to fill. But Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn has the potential to be elite. He's one of the fastest guys in this class. He's joining a receiver core that he's not going to be a primary focus for a lot of defenses. He's going to get, I think, kind of that Rashard Higgins treatment where if you leave him open, he's going to hurt you.
The other thing is that it's a guy that they like to throw. Auburn used him, kind of the bubble screens, throw underneath, get the ball in his hands, get him out in space, and let people try to catch him or tackle him.
Yeah, not a doubt about it. He's so quick that he can turn, like you said, a bubble screen into a first down like that. And it's so dynamic. It just adds another element to this Browns offense that's already pretty darn dynamic.
Now, they did a great work on the defense, did the front office and Andrew Berry. What are the offseason moves do you like the most? Which one do you think, boy, they really got that one right? And there have been a number of them that have been pretty good.
I was going to say it's the best offseason that we've had is that we can go through and there's a plethora of options to pick from. Obviously, bringing in Johnson is going to be an anchor for this defense. You get a guy with experience that can come in, make a difference immediately. But honestly, I like the Koromoa pick the most. And I think that's going to have the biggest impact on this defense because I think the linebacking core, it was the biggest issue because you have guys like Greedy Williams, guys like Grant Delpit that are essentially going to play their rookie year in 2021-22 because losing the season to injury. So now you're essentially debuting a whole new secondary with some new linebacking depth. I love it.
Talking Browns with Tommy Carosielli from the Gap to Gap podcast. And Tommy, tell me if you buy this. To me, Andrew Berry went out and he identified not only guys that can play, but he identified smart guys that are versatile. And you look at John Johnson. He was the guy that was responsible for lining up everybody for the Rams, and that was a really good defense. You look at Anthony Walker. He was the guy that was responsible for lining up all the Colts guys, the green dot guys, if you will. There is a definite profile, versatility, smart, tough, and it looks like Andrew Berry knows the type of player that he wanted for the defense.
I think this all goes back to the addition of Jarvis Landry and this attitude that he brought to the Cleveland Browns of leadership from anybody on the field. It doesn't have to come from a quarterback. It doesn't have to come from your quote-unquote traditional position roles that would be your leaders. Now you're seeing, like you said, guys like John Johnson and Anthony Walker that are anybody can be a green dot guy on this roster or on this defense. And I think that just speaks to not only the talent evaluation of Andrew Berry, but also the character evaluation of Andrew Berry. And I think that's such a key part of team building. And I think it's why you've seen some teams rise up with maybe not the most talented guys, but those guys that can lead, those guys that can step in and play any role at any time. I think that is championship culture.
The other thing that I think it will do, because guys are smart and versatile and kind of the quote-unquote football gym rats, if you will, they're going to be able to disguise coverages, and Joe Woods is going to be able to do a lot of things with this defense game to game that will confuse offenses.
And that's just what makes it so dynamic, and it's going to be so much fun to watch come Sundays in the fall.
Tommy Carosielli and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we're going to shift our focus a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about NBA playoffs. LeBron loses in the first round. We'll also talk a little bit of Indians, and we'll wrap things up with a look at June 4th, 1974, the 10-cent beer night between the Indians and the Rangers. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
First, they said cigarettes were safe. We know how that turned out. Now, they say they didn't market e-cigarettes to teens. Fact, more than 1 in 4 high school students are vaping, and 80% say their first e-cigarette was flavored. Vaping is harmful to developing brains. The reason we think vaping is safe? Marketing. Same lies, different day. Tell Big Vape to quit lying.
Another look in at the OHSAA State Softball Championships. Semifinals today and tomorrow, finals on Sunday at Firestone Stadium down in Akron. Tommy Carosielli and I from the Gap to Gap podcast, let's shift our focus a little bit. So LeBron James and the Lakers lose to the Suns, the first time in his career that LeBron James has gone out in the first round of the NBA playoffs.
You know, it's so upsetting to me because I love LeBron. I love his legacy. I think that it kind of gives the people who argue Jordan being the GOAT another chip in their argument. And it does stink to see him go down in the first round, granted with an injured Anthony Davis, but the history books aren't going to talk about that.
Yeah, and it's a tough one. You know, things were kind of stacked up against them as that series went on. So let me ask you this. Do you think Cleveland fans cheer against LeBron or Kyrie Irving more? I have an answer. Let me see what yours is.
So if you would have asked me this question yesterday before the game, I would have wholeheartedly said Kyrie. But then after the game, I'm scrolling through social media and I'm just seeing all this. Oh, I'm so glad LeBron lost. I'm so tired of him. And I'm like, where was this? When did this come out? Because I don't remember this happening. So now I'm going to lean a little bit more towards LeBron, but my gut still says Kyrie because of the fact that, it seems like LeBron gets more credit for the championship than Kyrie does. And, LeBron being a Northeast Ohio guy, I feel like he gets a little more credit. So I feel like there's still a larger pocket of fans that root for LeBron versus that pocket of fans that root for Kyrie.
Yeah, I would agree. And the other thing is just the way Kyrie Irving tried to force his way out. It's like, come on. And I said it on a show that we did similar to this one. He was never going to be the number one. He is not a number one option. He's a really, really, really good number two option, and he found that out in Boston. He went to Boston and found out, I'm a number two, and almost as much as admitted it when he teamed up with Durant.
And he is an elite number two. And I think that is something that definitely gets lost in the shuffle. But because he had that small period in Cleveland where he was looked at as a number one and then went to Boston and was looked at as a number one, that people aren't going to give him his fair share of run as an elite number two. They're just going to look at him and say, yeah, you're a number one and you're not a good one at that. And that's why you went to Brooklyn and teamed up with that super team. But I don't know. I like Kyrie as a number two. And I think that's a caveat that most NBA fans don't want to make.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he may be the best number two, but he's not durable enough. He's not a guy that – when's the last time you heard somebody say, boy, he makes everybody on the court better of Kyrie Irving? You really haven't heard him say that. And you hear that constantly about LeBron James. That's what a number one does. I made that point. Absolutely. I stick by it, and you won't convince me other than that. All right, enough with the NBA. We can't talk about that here too long in Cleveland. So let's turn our attention to baseball. Now, the Indians have come out and basically made it clear that if Cal Quantrill does not get used in the next couple of days in relief, he will get a start Sunday against the Baltimore Orioles. I like what I have seen from Cal Quantrill. I hope he gets that chance because I think he could be a guy that answers some of those questions at the back end of the rotation.
And I couldn't agree more with that. I do really like Cal Quantrill. He's a great young pitcher. The only problem that I have with that is when you get a guy bouncing back and forth between rotation and bullpen, it tends to, number one, mess with his routine. And I think baseball, more than any other sport, is so routine oriented. And number two, I think it does kind of cloud the roster's construction in terms of Terry Francona's how he's going to deploy him. But if he can get the start Sunday, anchor himself on the back end of that rotation, I think that the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what happened was Clase and Karinchak kind of answered what they needed answered. If they would have known they were going to get that early out of those two, I think he might have had a better chance at the rotation. I think he was kind of an insurance backup guy for the back end of that. And that brings us to this. So Emmanuel Clase has registered the most 100-mile-an-hour pitches in baseball by a wide margin, almost double that of Jacob deGrom. 172 of his pitches have hit 100 miles an hour. DeGrom's been injured a little bit, but he is a starter, and he's got 88. Clase has elite closer written all over him.
Oh, yeah. And the one thing if you're looking at that stat at face value, the one thing you worry about is he a one-trick pony? But, oh, wait, half those probably 172 are cutters that dive 6 inches and, probably another quarter are two-seamers that run. And then he comes at you with the 92-mile-an-hour slider. He's such a dynamic reliever, and we got him for 1 inning of Corey Kluber.
Yeah. And he's young. He's only going to get better. He's going to figure it out pretty quickly. As always, Tommy Carosielli, appreciate it. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Tommy Carosielli from the Gap to Gap podcast. I am sure we will have you back. Again, Tommy, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Tommy Carosielli. Before we go, this date back in 1974, very interesting one. One of the most infamous baseball promotions that you'll ever see. Virgil Dominic has the story. We'll also hear from Ted Bonda, president of the Indians, as well as Russell Schneider, who was the Indians beat reporter of the time.
The Arab oil embargo against the U.S. is lifted. Patty Hearst is kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, and President Nixon is forced to resign as a result of the Watergate break-in and cover-up. The year is 1974. And our Indians are trying to get fans in the seats at Municipal Stadium. Ballpark promotions are the rage, and one of the most infamous 10-cent beer night took place on June 4th, 1974.
I thought, my God, look at all the people at the game. We didn't have many people in here. We had maybe 3 times as much as we normally had. And I thought it was wonderful.
Fans are enjoying a rally that sees the Tribe tie the game at 5 with 2 runs in the ninth. Then with 2 outs and the bases loaded, some of the 25,000 faithful try to help the home team a little too much.
A couple of guys ran out. The right fielder then was Jeff Burrows. And a couple of fans ran out in the field, and one of them grabbed his cap. The Burrows chased him, and the fans came out in the field. Oh, it was terrible. And, and then the Rangers players were out there, and Billy Martin was right in the front of them, and the Indians charged out in the field. They weren't fighting each other as much as they were fighting the fans to protect themselves.
One of the Rangers players caught in the middle of the whole mess is number 21, first baseman Mike Hargrove. Umpire Nestor Shylock tries to restore order and continue the game, but his efforts are in vain.
Nestor Shylock, forfeited the game, and later, after that, then we went down to interview him. He said, it was like a jungle out there, man. It was like a jungle out there. Somebody might have gotten killed, and he was right. It was terrible.
Who would think that a small riot would occur? But it did, and the game was forfeited, and I took a great deal of blasting about it, including, as I said, it was called in New York the next day to explain why I did it.
Ted Bonda talking about 10-cent beer night back on June 4th, 1974. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Indians in Baltimore. J.C. Mejia gets his first start in the big leagues. We will see you again Monday at 4 o'clock right here on Sports for CLE. Mary Kay Cabot, scheduled guest. See you then.